Welcome to the Ground Floor Script Reading Group. I am Ryan Menard, your host, and this is our writers interview series. Today we have Chris Wilson, and we're going to talk about his script, Mount St. Hell. Chris,
Hi.
welcome.
Nice to be here.
Excellent.
My place.
Yeah, the fantastic set. The
Thank you.
colors pop. I love it.
Thank you.
The monitor loves it. So, Mount St. Hell has quite a personal story as well as, it's historic.
Sure.
But then tell me about the genre, because this is kind of what I find the fun part.
So during the pandemic, I started to get together with some friends of mine, just over like Zoom calls, and we would watch bad movies and kind of make fun of them. And specifically, we found that bad 80s movies is like, that's the perfect place for these bad films. It was the big like blockbusters that started with Star Wars and E.T. and these big huge powerhouse visual effects wise movies, and I think a lot of people in the 80s wanted to emulate that. So there was just a bunch of these movies that were made of action and sci-fi and whatnot. But they didn't have the money or the talent or anything else to pull it off. So
Just the drive.
So yeah, it was a lot of like the modern B movies. I find that they're trying to parody what had happened in the 80s and they're trying to make intentionally bad comedy films, where in the 80s they were just making bad films. And even though they're trying to make good films, and that's where the comedy comes from. So with Mount St. Hell, I wanted to try to like emulate that as much as possible and get away from the modern B movies and try to go back to something where it would look like on the surface we were trying to make a good movie, but at the end of the day, it's still really shitty.
Well, I mean, it builds up just like you would expect in a regular movie. I mean, it catches your attention, you're building, and then you start throwing these little wrenches in.
Yeah.
And absolutely funny. So tell me a little bit about some of the characters and how they're based in real life, and then,
Sure.
obviously some aren't. So
Yeah, I grew up in the town that was closest to Mount St. Helens and was born a few days before it blew. And so I was kind of just raised with a lot of people that had become either famous, not famous, but had stories involving the mountain. And so I knew a lot of those people, or just knew of a lot of people that were a part of the eruption. And so, yeah, for the script, I started by following my dad's story. He was a worker in Toutle where he was working was right on the river that ended up flooding out from the eruption. And so he had to rescue some people from that building. So I kind of took like that as the core base story.
Okay.
And then started filling in with other people that I knew or knew of. So, there's a big section with Como News and some of the employees there that were all real people that I'd heard about and whatnot and knew of growing up. And I was making a horror movie, sort of, a horror comedy, and some of what Dave Crockett had gone through in his real experiences with the mountain seemed very horrific and very horror film-esque.
Yeah.
Being trapped up on the mountain with a camera and like not live streaming, but recording his journey out of the eruption. It was always really chilling. So it made sense to include stories like that into it.
that is, I mean, it's amazing having read the script, and you guys someday will see the film. Seeing the way you did it in the script, having him talk and then slowly the light goes away.
Yeah.
That was kind of historically accurate, wasn't it?
Yeah, that section is one of the few sections that's like word for word. Most of the script is hilariously accurate. Like if you go and research a lot of the little bits and pieces and the people, that was all real stuff. I just threw them into a fictional end setting and whatnot. But yeah, the Dave Crockett stuff, like it was word for word directly from his tapes that he was making while leaving the mountain.
That was awesome. I mean, it worked really well. Was there any, well, actually, let's go back and let's talk a little bit more about the town. Now, this is Tootle, right?
Yeah.
The town, the people, what kind of inspiration did you get out of that for the characters?
Yeah, I mean, most of the characters are based off of people that I knew in town growing up. It was definitely a very small and very kind of redneck community. And there was a lot of people that had big personalities. So it was easy just to like grab little bits and pieces, grab a name, you know, from my childhood and just sort of write them sort of how I remembered them. That being said, a lot of like the smaller characters deviate a lot from what they were doing during the eruption. It was more about just taking like the personality. So yeah, like in the bar sequence, there's a woman named Pepper, and she was my neighbor growing up and was very similar to the character that's in the script, although she was probably not at the bar that night.
And the local watering holes always, for the small town Washington,
Yeah.
that is, I mean, I grew up small town Washington too, and it's, yeah, the local watering holes are definitely colorful. You get a lot of good personalities.
I was too young at 6 days old to like to venture into the watering holes, but
No,
yes.
definitely, yeah. Now, how did you go about figuring out how to bring in the horror aspect?
Like the creature element in the end?
Exactly. I didn't want to give away too much,
No,
but
it's
it's
fine.
like...
I don't honestly remember, like, again, having watched 200 of these
Yeah.
bad 80s movies over the last couple of years, in our like a little weekly thing, the types of movies that I really liked out of those tended to be the ones that were like more creature features.
Okay.
You know, had the rubber monster, you know, style of,
Love it.
of creatures.
Practical effects.
So if I was writing a script where it's just like I'm kind of entertaining myself during the pandemic, writing this script about my parents, you know, what aspects of those movies would be the most fun to bring into this script? And so yeah, I don't really know. I think it was pretty early on I made the decision to like have creatures in it, but I don't remember what the exact inspiration was. But
Well, I mean, watching all those shows, I mean,
Sure,
there
yeah.
is so much creativity in those, especially low budget. It's
or
like,
lack of creativity at times, which is funny as
that's
well.
very true. It's like, how can we build this creature and how can we do it with practical effects? Or, you
Yeah.
know, because, I mean, 80s, well, you're a visual effects guy, right? 2 degrees, is it?
Yeah, I did 2 degrees doing digital visual effects, which is kind of where I started, and then have been moving into the live action for a decade or more.
Wow. I mean, I need that kind of knowledge for doing this stuff for sure. But I mean, well, having been in one of your movies or so, you know, it's like the quality is fantastic. And even though you're trying to make it low budget, I can see that you're definitely going down the road of having some quality back there.
Yeah, I mean, again, what I liked about the 80s movies is they were really making the attempt to live up to, you know, things like Star Wars and you know, the Spielberg movies. And so they were definitely trying. So again, while a modern day B movie might be intentionally making everything look shitty just for that joke, that gag, that there should be an aspect of like, that was almost cool, you know, with Mount St. Hel. Like,
Oh, definitely.
It should always feel like we were reaching for something really cool and just missing it.
Yeah, and then adding something that's just a little bit over the top. Tara, I believe, does a bit of a Tarzan number in there. So
Yes.
that one completely caught my eye during the read. I'm like, I could picture that. I'm like, oh, I can see him doing this.
Trying to give everybody like a little fun moment, you know, in
Yeah.
the script, some ridiculous action that they can do.
It's like,
and
oh, you gotta be kidding.
the Tara one was probably the most ridiculous of all of them.
That was really good. And you know, she adapted well through the scene. As in reading it, I was expecting her to kick off a lot earlier. But
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, oh.
Ends up sort of being the final girl of the script.
She just keeps rolling along. And then the Como News rescue party, totally, you know, didn't expect that.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. I was expecting a horrific death, a crash or something, but it kept going. And then you really put your dad into kind of the full-on hero mode.
Yeah. I mean, it's where the script came from originally. Was so during the pandemic, I was bored and writing, and I was thinking about how my family's history with the mountain, and me being born only 6 days before it, and having to evacuate. Like, it's a pretty unique take on a historic event, which I just sort of grew up with and like took for granted, I think. And so during the pandemic, I was like, man, I should like really just like interview my parents and like write it down, and how I'd write it down would be in a script form. So it started with interviewing them and writing a drama about it. And I got like 20 or so pages into it. And I was like, I don't write drama, I write comedy.
I like comedy, yeah.
And I've been watching these shitty B movies, like what if I combine the two together? But yeah, the initial concept was just sort of like telling my parents' story more than anything on that day.
That is really cool. I mean, I wouldn't have expected that at all. Taking something as huge as the mountain blowing up. I mean, I was just a few more miles away in Yakima at the time, and
you guys got hit pretty hard too.
Yeah, it was horrific. It was so immense. I didn't even trying to think of the right word. It was so not real. You just see this cloud rolling in.
Yeah.
And then, boom. It's like no one knowing what to do. Are we going to die? Can we breathe this stuff?
Yeah.
Cars start dropping out. And but as we got into the film, you introduce the creatures. And at that point, you bring in the relationship of you, right? Are you the baby in this one?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So how did...
I'm more of a prop than anything in the movie. Like, I'm barely there, but yeah.
It's a bit of a, give me the baby back. No, it's my baby. No,
Yeah. When I got a first draft done, I took the script over to my parents and was just like, if you guys want to like read what I've been writing, here it is. My mom sat down and started reading it and just like read through the entire thing. I was like, you don't have to read it all right now. She's like, no, I'm interested. So she reads the whole thing and she gets done. She's like, why am I the bad guy in this? Like, what did I do? Like, that's not accurate.
I was wondering that. I'm like, did she deserve to be the bad guy, or did it just work out?
No, she didn't. It was just like, at that point in the script, like throwing as much ridiculous plot points as I can. And
that is so
having
fun.
my mom turn into the villain seemed like, a pretty ridiculous one.
That was so much fun.
In reality, she got me safely to Portland, and I ended up living with my grandparents, my parents and grandparents, for a few months following the eruption. So, yeah, she did not turn evil.
So in real life, how did your dad's, his work, was everything demolished, or were you able to redo anything?
The business is still open today, but they moved it to the tallest peak in Toutle. But yeah, the original building was hit by the lahars and was completely wiped out. And I remember him taking me when I was a kid to show me like where it had been, and you could still see like some of the destruction and whatnot.
Wow.
From that. But yeah, they ended up relocating, and Dad ended up working there for another 10 or 15 years following the eruption.
So timeline-wise, or not even timeline, but the future of this script, where do you see you're going with it?
I mean, I'd like to make it. I have a producer that I've worked with a bunch in the past, and she has been getting budgets for films, and she likes the script and has been looking at the possibility of making this. So,
excellent.
It's one of those things where it's very hard to make a movie and to get a budget. But I have somebody that I have faith in, so I'm hopeful. I think it's a good script. I think it'd be a really fun watch. Definitely.
I think there's a lot of has legs on that, as you could call it, or that genre has room for more. Because there's a huge fan base for that.
Yeah, and it's a little, like I was saying, like the modern B movies, they're doing it differently. So it's harkening back to a different era of these B movies that I think people would find interesting.
It goes around, right?
Yeah, it's still gonna like have what people love out of modern B movies, but just done it a little bit different of a way. So
Excellent. So as far as scripts, what's next on the chopping block?
oh God, I actually really haven't thought about that too much. At least not a feature. Mount St. Hell was the first feature that I wrote alone, solo. The other features that I've done, it's been like a collaboration. And it was definitely an interesting challenge doing one solo. I think with writing comedy, it's good to have people to like bounce off of a lot of times.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So I haven't really thought about what else to write. I feel like it's just one of those things where like when it hits me, and it'll either hit me as another solo project or, you know, with my little writing team that I write with. That being said, I'm always trying to think of new shorts and new little fun things to shoot.
Yeah.
Short film making has definitely been a passion of mine over the last, oh God, it's been too long, decade or more.
Wow.
So I definitely love doing that sort of stuff. I love the quick form of it that you can just, you know, shoot it in a day and get it all edited pretty quickly.
Knock it out, make content, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where I'm working now is a gaming company, and
Oh,
I'm
cool.
in charge of doing short form content. They don't want their advertisements to feel advertisey, so they're more wanting to just have comedic things done. So
excellent.
yeah, I'm in a fun place where I'm building content for my job now as well.
I've noticed a lot of people have moved towards kind of the freeform TikTok type, and that seems to be, I mean, a lot of big companies are putting money into content creators instead of the big acting groups.
Yeah.
So where can people reach you? You have a YouTube that's Ganglebot?
Ganglebot, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I pronounce
like
it
a
right.
robot that's gangly, Ganglebot. So my short films are all housed there.
So one more thing, what's it like being an urban farmer?
Is this a farm? No, it's fun. Let's see. We have a couple goats and a couple chickens. We've had ducks in the past and bunnies. It's nice. Like we're minutes away from being in the city. I mean, we're technically in the city, but have a full acre.
Full acre right here.
Yeah, so it's
fantastic.
nice to be able to, like, you know, we got a busy road and businesses just, you know, a block or two away, but be able to like take a few steps away from the road and it quiets a little bit and there's goats walking around and it's very nice. It's a nice break from the world.
Fresh eggs, and then if I remember right, didn't we do, was it Throng?
Yeah.
And I got to kiss a goat.
Yeah, there's some goat acting that happens from time to time. We've strapped
I love it.
machetes to the backs of goats and put them through a zombie horde before. So
Oh man,
everybody's an actor on the property at
I
times.
love it. Yeah, we're just getting into chickens too, so they are extremely hard to put on film.
Yes.
Especially yours are free range. Mine are at least handled a lot, but I mean, I can't imagine trying to catch those and then wipe up behind them.
Yeah, you just sort of put them in a scene and they do what they're going to do, basically.
And hope it works.
Yeah.
So, excellent. All right. Well, Chris, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ryan.
Appreciate it, and let's do more.
Heck yeah.
Excellent. So that was Ground Floor Script Reading Group. Chris Wilson. The script is Mount St. Hell. Look for it in theaters.